Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome in to Live and Learn, our first show of 2025. Happy to be live with all of you today. It is January the 1st, 2025. Hope you all had a healthy and happy New Year. I know myself, I didn't do a whole lot, but that's a good night for me. Watching hockey, watching some college football doesn't get a whole lot better than that. But we have a lot to dive into today. We are going to recap the World Junior action from yesterday, start to preview the quarterfinals that will take place tomorrow, quarterfinal Thursday at the World Junior Hockey Championships. And towards the back end of the show, I am doing some predictions in the sports world for 2025. I have a list of people that I believe will be fired in 2025. It's a prediction, obviously not a great one to see somebody lose a job, but it happens all the time. So I have a list for that. I also just have a list of things that I believe will happen in 2025 in the sports world. It varies. I have a team missing the playoffs. I have certain things that we will get into, some predictions. So that is all forthcoming. But let's lead it off with the game that a lot of us watched last night, Canada and the Americans. 12th time, New Year's Eve, a tradition, great crowd, good energy, and all in all, a very entertaining game. Two talented teams, a lot of talented players, and I enjoyed the game. The U.S. ultimately take it 4-1. And if you're watching 5-on-5, if you look up shots, puck possession, statistics, you're thinking, how did Canada lose to the Americans last night? They're the better team. All that can be true, but sometimes you just don't win the game. Sometimes you get goalied, which I don't think happened last night, even though Trey Augustine was very good for the Americans. You could say, well, maybe the goaltending for Canada wasn't all that good. Disagree. I think Carter George was extremely solid, again, between the pipes for Canada. Canada lost for two really key reasons to me. Stupidity and the inability to get into the difficult areas. So let's start with stupidity. Canada took 7 penalties last night against the Americans. I gripe on officials more than anybody. I hate video review. I hate just unnecessary review, anything like that. I hate it. I'm not for it, against it. But all 7 penalties called against Canada last night were penalties. It wasn't, oh, the refs were out to get them. No, Canada was out to get themselves. Not having the ability to know where their stick are, to go between somebody's legs, throwing a late hit that's completely unnecessary, getting frustrated. Carson Rakoff getting a shift for once and taking 2 minor penalties after finally getting an opportunity. Complete waste. And then towards the back end of the game, Easton Cowan, who had a pretty horrible game up until this point, well, pretty subpar tournament, takes a penalty that could have been worse. For him, it's only 2 minutes. And Cole Eiserman goes shelf to give the Americans an insurance goal. 7 penalties, all penalties, none fraudulent for Canada. So there's 2 schools of thought. They're kids. Yes, they are kids. But a number of these guys are close to being pros. Cal Ritchie, Jet Lachenko, you could argue Easton Cowan, all could have been NHLers this year. Guys that have gotten looks, guys that are very close to turning pro. And yet they play like they're not close to pro hockey whatsoever. Dave Cameron's the head coach, and it's a short tournament, but discipline has to be top of mind today. It's one thing to take a penalty when you're going to save a goal. You can understand that. Somebody makes a mistake, you have to take a penalty to bail out a teammate. That, you know what? Do that if it's going to save a goal. When you're taking a penalty 200 feet from the opposition's net, from your own end, that's just unacceptable. Can't happen. When you throw a late hit, a dangerous one at that, because you're frustrated because you've done nothing for 3 games, that's not aggression. That's just stupidity. The Canadiens were likely going to lose last night anyway, because in the third, they didn't really have a great third period. It was their worst period to me of the 3. But that Easton Cowan penalty, which led to the Cole Eiserman beauty of a goal, that was it. That was ball game. It was over. And I feel for him. I do. I think all in all, it's harder to be a Leaf prospect than it is to be, say, a Buffalo Sabres prospect. Because there's a lot of Leaf fans, and Leafs, I know a lot of Leafs fans are all pretty good people. But there's a lot of Leaf fans that are shitty people. That just go crazy. And there's these people on Twitter, on Instagram, that are just lunatics, quite frankly. And I think the kid is pressing. I think he expected to have a really big tournament. He hasn't. He had a really good pre-tournament. It hasn't translated. He's playing with Cal Ritchie, who, another guy for me, who hasn't had a very good tournament. I expected to be really good. Hasn't. They played together every game, so there might be some correlation there. I think there is. I talked about breaking them up before the United States game. They didn't change any of the lines. They didn't listen to me, which fine. Don't listen to me. But it's one thing to dominate possession. It's one thing to say we outplayed them. We didn't win. Who cares? If this is an 82-game schedule and you go, hey, we played pretty well, but we took 7 penalties, it's a short tournament. Canada has taken 22 penalties in 4 games. That's hard to do. It's hard to be that undisciplined. They have not allowed a 5-on-5 goal in 4 games. That's another incredible stat. And yet you've lost twice. You lose to Latvia and you lose to the United States. I mean, it's quite incredible. Hard to be that inept. Rakoff 2 penalties. Cowan takes a penalty. It went around 7 penalties last night. And just stupid stuff. Let it go. Put your stick in the right position so you're not going to give, excuse me again, the opposition a can opener. It's getting called every time. Every time. Why look at the official with a face of, ugh? You have your stick. It goes between his legs. If the defender falls down, that is getting called 100 times out of 100. and it has for years. These Canadians are like petulant children where they know they've misbehaved, but yet they still have a face. And they're still upset that, yes, we misbehaved, but we just expect not to be caught for it. No, you're getting caught for it. But that 7 penalties in one game simply can't happen. First, second period, 5-on-5, Canada was better. Canada controlled the game, controlled pace, got some decent scoring opportunities, had the Americans chasing the game. But then every time you got some momentum, you take a penalty and it's completely zapped. It's gone because it's just, okay, well, we got to kill another penalty. We got to kill another penalty. The Americans end up going 3 for 7 on the power play. Give them enough volume, they're going to score. Eisenman with the third goal. What a beauty that was. Cole Hudson with the opener, who I thought was the best player on the ice either team last night. And Hudson finds Danny Nelson for the 2-1 goal to put them ahead in the third period. So that's reason one. I think they lost last night, why they haven't been very successful so far at this tournament. So reason number one, stupidity. Reason number two is the inability for the Canadians to get the puck into high danger scoring chances. I'm not a metrics guy. I'm not a stats nerd. But what I do know is when you have the puck and you're about 4 feet from the net, you have a better chance of scoring than when you are at the half boards firing a puck that's probably not going to hit the net. Or trying to saucer pass through 2 different defenders' sticks to find another guy cross ice. It doesn't work. The players are too good. The defending's too good. The game's too fast. It's not going to happen. Craig Button's made this point 100 times in the tournament, and he's right. Shoot the puck. Hope to get a rebound. Not saucer pass through 3 guys' sticks. That's a suboptimal play. I don't care who's making the pass. I don't care if it's Gretzky, Crosby. Guess what? Those guys aren't Gretzky or Crosby. Easton Cowan might turn out to be a great NHLer. In this tournament, he's been Aki Berg, okay? He's not making that pass. Shoot the puck. Make a smarter play. And this happens not just with Canada, it happens with every team. Watching the power play, it would frustrate you because you're looking at it going, what are you doing? But for Canada, it's evident. Scoring 5-on-5 is difficult. That's why you have to get to those areas. That's why you have to get to the front of the net, cause havoc, screens, make the goalie's life difficult. Trey Augustine, good game last night. Full marks to him. And he made some good saves. But a lot of those shots were far away. And they didn't need to be dangerous. They weren't that tough to make the save because nobody was in front of him. Or they were 15, 20 feet away from the net and he could just block it aside. If you look at Canada's goals, Jet Lutchenko scored shorthanded, foot away from the net. In this tournament, it's not pretty. Canada can't score. That's not an opinion. It's a fact. Make it ugly. It's not going to be, it's not a beauty contest. And the team they play next, Czechia, they're really going to make it not a beauty contest because that's the only way they can win. So gear up for that. But shooting from the outside, hoping for something to work from out there, use your head. Not the right way to go. Not the winning formula whatsoever. Not going to work. So, all that being said, Canada's not out of it. They have a quarterfinal matchup tomorrow night against the Czech Republic, who they lost to last year in the quarterfinal in Sweden. They played the Czechs for gold 2023. They have a lot of history with this nation the last number of years. Won some, lost some. The games are always close. So I expect another tough game tomorrow night between these two teams. For me, I'm making changes. I talked about this on Monday's show. I'm not going back to the same lines and just hoping for a better result. So a couple things. No more Cowan and Ritchie together. Doesn't work. It hasn't worked since the pre-tournament. I don't care who's the third on the line with them. It's not creative enough. They don't work because they're on the same power play together. They don't score when they're on the power play together. I thought Bradley Nadeau, who scored Canada's only goal, had a good game. He had some jump. He had some legs. He was around the ice. I want to play him. I want to bump him up. Give him a shot with Ritchie again. And I like just a simplistic line you could put. I like Tanner Howe. I thought he had good legs. He can play. That could be a line. And it's got a blend of everything. Tanner Howe, and then you get Nadeau and Ritchie. That could be your top line. The best forward all tournament long, any line, has been Berkeley Catton. I think he's looked really good. Him and McKenna work, but they're not scoring, so it's not working. They're the most dangerous, but nothing's happening. So I don't think you can stay the same. Cowan's still one of the most talented players on the team, and he's the most likely to break out. I'd put him on a line with Berkeley Catton. And if you really wanted to spice up a line, you could keep Gavin McKenna with those two guys. That's a talented group. It's a lot of skill. And see what happens. I like their fourth line of Baudouin, Cataford, and Ethan Gauthier. I think it's a physical line. It can create. They give you energy, which is what a fourth line is supposed to do. So credit there. And then you can have a third line, basically, of Jet Lutsenko, who I don't mind, Luca Pinelli, and Carson Rakoff. And blend, Yager's been quiet. Yager's been kind of underwhelming for me. Captain of the team, 19-year-old, expected to do more, hasn't really burst out of the scene yet. Could still do it. Could still find his game, be productive, but haven't seen it yet. But I'd make lineup changes. Because you can go, they did good stuff and they control, but they don't score. So it doesn't work. That's the key ingredient. If they scored 5 goals last night, well, our offense is clicking. No, it's not. Their last 3 goals were scored by 2 defensemen, and the third one was on the power play by Bradley Nadeau. That's their last 3 goals. So that's not ideal. You can't rely on that every game that it's going to be there. Now, Czechia does take penalties just like Canada because they're an aggressive forecheck team and they can kind of take some penalties. So you can hope that your power play can kill them. But, I mean, that's no lock at this point. With the way that Canada's power play has been average throughout the tournament, that's how I describe it, pretty average thus far. I don't think it's an ultimate weapon that can save you through a game, but we'll see. The Czechs are very hard on the forecheck. They make life difficult on your defense core. They're a physical group. And they just want to muck up the game, basically. They will get the last change because they're going to be the home team. So they will be able to line match and to be creative in what they want to do against Canada. But they played Sweden hard. Sweden was by far the better team. But I will say is that if Czechia didn't take a few penalties, they could have been in that game. Could have been closer. Sweden scored 2 power play goals in the second period. They were chasing the game after that. And Sweden does have some high-end guys that played really well. If you're looking at Czechia, Hrabal, goaltender from UMass, has to be good. Their captain has been good all tournament scoring goals. Edward Chalet, his 3rd World Junior, 2nd round pick of the Seattle Kraken. Jakob Stansel, another guy who's a point producer. Adam Miracek on the back end. And also a guy I like, Peter Sikora, is another dangerous player on this team. Because if you look at it, for points, Stansel has 7. That's 1 off the tournament lead. For goals, Chalet is tied for first, and Hradic both have 4 goals, which is tied for the tournament lead. And Stansel, for that matter. Hrabal's been good. 236 goals against average, 925 save percentage so far in the tournament, so he's been very good. He has experience at this tournament. So as I said, Czech Republic are no easy out. They are not going to give the game away to Canada. They can score goals. They're going to be physical. They need good goaltending. But I believe they can compete. They can keep the game close. This week we'll do a podcast Friday, kind of reacting to the games. It won't be tomorrow just because Canada plays at 8:30. So I'll be doing kind of a show late Friday afternoon, early Friday evening, reacting to what happens as we go into semifinals and the gold medal game, which will be this weekend. I do think Canada will beat the Czech Republic. I'm going to start off by saying that. It's doom and gloom, but I still believe Canada can win the gold medal. Absolutely. They have all the ingredients if they can put it together. Would I have picked different players? Yes. Do they make stupid decisions? Has their coaching, to me, been below average? Sure. Their line combinations, to me, less than perfect. Yeah, sure. Missing Matthew Schaefer hurts. Playing Gavin McKenna 7 minutes last night through 2 periods, less than ideal. But all that can be cleaned up. I expect another close game. Czech Republic's not going to go away. As I said, they played in the semifinal in the bubble in Edmonton. They played in the gold medal game 2023 Halifax. 2024 quarterfinal Sweden. Canada won 2 of those. But they were all 1-goal games. One of them went to overtime. Czech Republic scored with 18 seconds left in the third period last year to advance to the semifinal and beating Canada. The Czechs, if you look, have done something that Canada hasn't the last little while. 2022, bronze. 2023, silver. 2024, bronze. Canada didn't medal in Sweden, losing in the quarterfinal. They want to put an end to Czechia's medal streak, the success that this nation's been having, producing good young talent at this event. I have Canada winning 3-2 in a very close game, a late third period goal by, let's go with Easton Cowan to kind of battle some demons, get the monkey off his back, and have some positivity for himself in this tournament. But I have Canada winning 3-2 in a very tight game. Before we move off this, I want to talk USA. They weren't great last night, but they won the game, which is all that really matters if we're doing brass taxes here. I thought Cole Hudson was the best player on the ice, either team. Cole Hudson is having an awesome tournament. The brother of Lane Hudson, who's having a pretty damn good season himself in the NHL. Slow start. Let's send him to the minors. Sure. Let's look up Lane Hudson's season, shall we? Plus minus, I don't even look at it because it's a garbage statistic. We know this. He's got 26 points in 37 games as a rookie, and he's a defenseman. And he's averaging close to 23 minutes per night playing on a Montreal team that, quite frankly, isn't that good. But they played better as of late. Montreal, if you're not following, because it's a weird time of year. 3 straight wins. Florida, Tampa, Vegas, all on the road. Good for them. That's an impressive 3-game stretch. And now they're ahead of the Islanders, Red Wings, Rangers, Sabres in the standings, 1 point back of the Flyers. 2 points back of the Penguins. So they are in a playoff race, so to speak. Do I think they'll make the playoffs? No. But I want to give them their flowers because they deserve it. Because that's impressive stuff. To win those 3 on the road, that's hard. But Lane Hudson has been playing great, and Cole Hudson is having an awesome tournament. He stood out to me, his skating ability, his IQ to find guys on the ice. He's a second-round pick of the Washington Capitals last year. Only turns 19 in June, so he could theoretically play at this tournament again next year. He's got 14 points in 16 games for BU. He's got 6 points, so he's got 8 points in 4 games at this tournament. I think he's going to be like his brother, play 1 year in college and go pro. I think Cole Hudson will be playing in the NHL next year for the Washington Capitals. He's such a smooth skater. He's always got his head up looking for a potential play. I love when he's going down the wing, looking, finding guys. Whether it was his goal, whether it was his fantastic pass to Danny Nelson that turned out to be the game winner with about 5 minutes gone in the third period. Cole's legit. He's got it. And yeah, I think he's been their best player. Because, Ryan Leonard, to me, hasn't had that good of a turn. He's kind of been. He had a dumb penalty last night, ended the second period. He seems frustrated. He seems like he's been pissed off the entire tournament. Taking unadvised shots where he misses the net by 10 feet and it goes back towards the other way. Stupid plays in his own zone that leads to turnovers the opposite way. He scored the empty net, but I don't think he was very good last night or the last couple of games, quite frankly. The Americans are the most dangerous team. But can they be had? Yes, absolutely, to me. Because their top line's been snake bit. Hagens, Perreault, Leonard weren't all that dangerous last night, did not have the puck in the offensive zone, were hemmed a lot, and were forced to defend, which is exactly what Canada wanted, but they couldn't take advantage of it. If you look throughout their lineup, I think their depth lines, guys like Savoda, who I think's been quite good, Torrance, who works his tail off, plays penalty kill, plays defense, plays good in his own zone. He's been good. They have fast guys. But again, that's the bottom of their lineup, and you're hoping that they produce. And they're hoping that their back end can help them as well, because their back end has some guys that can put up points. Zeev Wyam, another guy from the University of Minnesota, I thought it was his best game of the tournament last night. He was on the ice a ton. And he was just all over the place, affecting the game for Canada. But they can be had. Now, they're playing Switzerland. I don't think they'll have any problem with Switzerland tomorrow afternoon. Switzerland beat Kazakhstan to advance to the quarterfinals. Switzerland's had some games where they play tough. Made it close against Sweden when Sweden took penalties. Kept it close against Slovakia for a period of time. But I think the U.S. will advance. But I would look at Sweden as a big obstacle for U.S. And they would only meet in the gold medal game like they did last year. But Sweden's impressed me more and more as this tournament's gone on. Their goaltending has improved. They have some stability there. I thought their goalie was great yesterday in a win against Czechia. They have three guys on the back end, and Tom Wallinder, who's a Canucks pick, Axel Sandin Pellikka, who leads the tournament in scoring, Detroit pick, and Theo Lindstein, who's a St. Louis Blues first rounder. All are quite fantastic. All have their different attributes. Sandin Pellikka is kind of a surgeon. He makes things happen, puck out of his zone quickly, really good shot, probably a pro next year, coming over from the Swedish Hockey League. Tom Wallinder, good shot, big body. I think he'll be more of a defensive D-man when he gets to the pro level. But I like his frame. Good at protecting his goaltender, good at protecting the front of his net. And then Theo Lindstein he's a smooth skater. He's fast. He would be the equivalent to and I'm going to do it again. These Canadians with Denton Mateychuk. I get that name. He's on Columbus. And he got a point last night. So that's why I have him on the brain. Tanner Molendyk. That's who I get those two mixed up, but I still do. Don't know why. They remind me of each other. Tanner Molendyk, Theo Lindstein, and I thought Molendyk was Canada's best D last night by far. He was all over the place. But Sweden has three defensemen that can affect a game, get the puck out of your zone quickly, And also, they can produce offense. They can help your forwards really create things, make things happen, which is awesome to have because they've had some good performances. Some Swedish forwards. Traff had his day yesterday. He scored 2 goals, his first 2 goals of the tournament. Anton Wahlberg, Otto Stenberg, Felix Unger-Sorum, to me, he had an awesome day yesterday. He was all over the place. Makes things happen on the half wall. He's another guy like Nadeau who's playing pro hockey with the Chicago Wolves. He's a product of the Carolina Hurricanes. But they have a lot of different elements to their team, a lot of different ways that they can beat you. And I think their team is better than what they had last year, and they got to the gold medal game. And Sweden has Latvia, who got by Germany, pushed Finland a little bit, but Latvia avoids relegation. Germany and Kazakhstan will play tomorrow morning in the 1-game relegation to see who stays in the top group, who will be demoted for Denmark to enter the fray in 2026. But I think Sweden beats Latvia quite easily. Hope their goalie could play well, keep them in it into the second, third period, but Sweden will advance. USA playing Switzerland. I like the Americans to win that game pretty easily, pretty sound, lopsided score. Finland, Slovakia, that's at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. Good draw for Finland to get that 2 spot. Beating the Americans was huge for them. They get Slovakia, and Slovakia so far has been disappointing to me. I thought they could medal. I predicted that they would win a bronze. They're not going to. They have a top line with Dalibor Dvorsky, who's a pro player, who's had a good tournament. Pacharchik, who's property of the Moncton Wildcats, who's having a good season in Moncton, and he's having a good tournament all in all. And Daniel Yenko. That's their top line, and they produce. Dvorsky, Pacharchik, Yenko all had 4 points in Monday's win against Kazakhstan that went to overtime. And Maxim Sturbak plays a ton on the back end for Slovakia. But they, other than that line, they don't do a whole lot. They check, but they don't have puck possession. Sturbak, Luka Rajojevic, a kid that is draft eligible, will be drafted. Not afraid with the puck for sure. I like his confidence. But like I said, I like Finland's draw. To me, Finland gets a really good quarterfinal game for themselves. Their goaltender started to play better, started to find his game. Kasper Holtonen, their big goal scorer from the London Knights, finally got on the board on the power play on yesterday, with Hellenius, Hemming. They will beat Slovakia, and I have Canada beating Czechia. So after that, it's reseeded, and Sweden is the number 1 seed because they went undefeated in their group. Meaning if things went the way I just said, Sweden would play Canada in the semifinal. The Americans would play Finland in the other semifinal, which means Canada and US could still meet for gold if things go the way that things go Canada's way and they get by Czechia tomorrow. Still a long way to go, a much tougher road to get to the gold medal game, but never say never. You never know what's going to happen in a tournament like this. But 4 quarterfinals tomorrow. Podcast will be Friday night And we'll recap the games and look forward to the weekend at the World Junior Hockey Championships. Okay. Before we get to predictions for 2025, because I have a lot of meat on the bone there, and that's going to be fun to go through. Yesterday, Winter Classic in Chicago. I watched some of it. The outdoor game, it's lost some of its flair, for sure, but it's a great moneymaker for the league. So good on them for doing it. It's a cool venue. The St. Louis Blues and Chicago Blackhawks jerseys were phenomenal. So check. But Wrigley Field, cool spot. You have two teams that are rivals, that have a history. If you have a cool venue, two teams that don't like each other, there was a fight, great. I'm all in. Cam Fowler, his 1,000th NHL game, scores 2 goals with a new team. Good for Cam Fowler. St. Louis obviously fired their coach, bring on Jim Montgomery. They are now 3 points out of a playoff spot, chasing the Calgary Flames, who beat the Vancouver Canucks last night, not knocking them out of a playoff position. St. Louis isn't a bad team. I still kind of clearly they want to try to make the playoffs this year, which credit to them. And that's why they fired their coach and they're bringing in more veteran players. And they signed Holloway and Broberg to offer sheets, and both players have been very good for St. Louis. Holloway's now up to 14 goals. So he's been incredibly productive. So that's awesome for them. But looking around the West, my biggest question mark going into 2025, the NHL, is the Vancouver Canucks. This team, has injuries now with Quinn Hughes out and Pettersson out. But there's all kinds of bickering about Pettersson and JT Miller not getting along on the same team, frustrated with one another. That's obviously not ideal. Not the way that you want things to be going between two of your star players. They haven't had a game this year where they've had all their players healthy together. Dakota Joshua missed the start of the year, so they didn't have him. JT Miller missed a large chunk of time. Now Pettersson and Quinn Hughes could both miss multiple weeks. And Quinn Hughes, like he always does, had been having a pretty fantastic season. Brock Besser's been okay. He missed some time, like he always does. I just look at the team and I go, with the injuries that they have, Soucy, Desharnais, Noah Juulsen, Tyler Myers, Forbert, Brandstrom. That's like 4 defensemen that aren't regular NHL defensemen, that you want to play one game because there's an injury. But you have 4 of them in your lineup. A Thatcher Demko that's still trying to find his game, a team that doesn't seem to be that well connected with one another. Can they find their game? Being a playoff team last year, having success, winning a playoff round, Rick Tocchet, Coach of the Year, all that stuff. They need to find it. They need to find that spark. They need to find something to bring themselves together. Coming up at Kraken, home to the Predators. Their next 2 games before they head out east, playing Montreal, Washington, Carolina, Toronto, Winnipeg. That's a tough 5-game road trip for the Vancouver Canucks. Really tough 5-game road trip. But they're my biggest question mark. I had some questions about Dallas with injuries and age, but I think they're going to be okay. They're starting to play better. And their biggest issue is that their division is loaded with Minnesota, who goes through spurts but refuse to go away. With or without Kirill Kaprizov in the lineup, they win games. The Winnipeg Jets, who still could win the President's Trophy, still one of the better teams in the league after 39 games with 55 points. Colorado, starting to put it together. Signed Mackenzie Blackwood to a large extension after having him for about 2 weeks. Didn't love that move, but we'll see. So if you're looking at spots for Vancouver, I believe Vegas is going to be a playoff team. I believe that LA, yes, they have their faults. They're going to be a playoff team because they always are. I believe the Edmonton Oilers are going to be a playoff team. Lots of faults. Can never be perfect. Will always make you shake your head. But I believe they're going to be a playoff team. I believe they're better than Vancouver. I believe Dallas is going to be a playoff team. Colorado, yes. Minnesota, yes. Winnipeg, yes. That leaves one spot. That leaves one wildcard spot for the Vancouver Canucks to take. So it's a very slim margin. And you have the Calgary Flames, who you lost to last night, in front of you. St. Louis right behind you. And really nobody else. I don't think Utah's good enough. I don't think the Kraken are quite good enough to get into this mix. But looking at that competition, Vancouver should be a play. Should. That doesn't mean they're going to be. That doesn't mean they're going to be a playoff team and be a threat. But they should. But they're my biggest question mark going into 2025. What is this team? And if it doesn't go well, what happens? Or even if you make the playoffs, if you lose in the first round because you're a wild card team and you play Winnipeg and you get smoked, what happens? Even with this, if you're in a playoff spot, do you consider trading JT Miller or Elias Pettersson to keep this team cohesive? To keep this team moving forward, because it's not going to work with the two of them together. Is it at that much of an impasse? Don't know, but it's incredibly interesting going into 2025. Other NHL notes I wanted to add. Let's see. I touched on Montreal. Good on them. Good run. Washington Capitals, 52 points in 37 games. 25 wins in 37 games. Ovechkin missed 16 of those. Logan Thompson, another 27 save performance yesterday against Boston, but not on the Four Nations team, huh? Jacob Chychrun, got him for nothing from Ottawa. Already has 11 goals. Alexei Protas, 16 goals before the 40-game mark. He might score 30 this year. They've been really impressive. Most surprising for me. We look at Logan Thompson, 19 games, 230 goals against, 918 saves. That's good numbers. Dylan Strome, over a point per game, 40 points in 37 games. Protas, 32 and 37. Connor McMichael, 30 and 37. Dubois, 28 and 37, quietly, because he hasn't scored goals. Ovechkin, 27 and 21 with 17 goals. Tom Wilson, 27 and 37. Chychrun, 25 points in 32 games with 11 goals on the season. They're getting production. They play a good system. Their coach is really smart. First in the Metropolitan, January 1st, nobody had that, including me. 6 points up in Carolina with the same amount of games played. I wouldn't have believed that if you told me, but it's true. And then there's the Rangers, who are 19 points back of the Capitals. The Rangers, who are 7 points out of a playoff spot, 16 points out of their third spot in their division. Igor Shesterkin out at least a week. They traded Trouba. That was all well and good. But now for 2025, the bigger conversation is, why bother firing a coach? Why bother doing trades in season to try to save it? Because I think their year is done. They're not making the playoffs. They're not going on a 50-game run where I think they're a great team. Especially if Shesterkin's banged up the back half of the year. He's got his contract. He's comfy. They have 18 guys on the roster that have expiring contracts that they have to make decisions on. They'll trade some of them. They'll make some moves. But why act in a desperate position when you know you're going to miss if you're Chris Drury? Disaster year, you take it on the chin, and you hope that ownership there doesn't fire you. Because you see, it happens in other. San Francisco 49ers missed the playoffs. Jed York came out yesterday and said they're not going anywhere. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. If Chris Drury is loved in New York by old Jimmy Dolan, then I wouldn't do that much stuff. I'm not considering big trades, big changes, because you're going to get pennies on the dollar for those guys. And that doesn't help you moving forward either. Get into the spring, get into the summer. You're going to have lots of time to pitch deals because you're not going to be playing come mid-April. Players will be golfing, and you'll have lots of time. You did a Trouba trade out of haste. And Trouba might not be loved across the league, but Trouba could get you more than a bag of pennies and a pile of dog shit, which is what you got from him from the Anaheim Ducks. So whether you say, we can trade Mika Zibanejad, we can trade this player, Chris Kreider, if you get nothing for them, then it's a sub. There's no point. Why bother and then do something in the offseason? And you could rebuild your roster quickly. Cooley expiring. Zibanejad expiring. Riley Smith expiring. Hedl expiring. Kreider's got a year left. Schneider expiring. Lindgren, Miller, VC. Go down the list. These guys need new contracts. You could rebuild your roster in an offseason. Or make stupid trades and do it now. It's up to you. But the Rangers' decisions, interesting in 2025 as well. One game in the NHL today. Devils Kings. 2012 Stanley Cup Final rematch, which I knew everybody had that one on the bingo card. But they moved up the outdoor game to New Year's Eve, which is typically New Year's Day. And I think they did that because of the college football today. That's my guess. 3 college football playoff quarterfinals that start in, half an hour? So I think that's why they did it. And one of those games, at least one of them, is on TNT, which is what the outdoor game was on yesterday in the Estates. So it makes sense because you're not going to do as well than college football. You're just not. Okay. 2025 predictions. I have a pair of lists to get into. 5 people who will be fired in 2025, and 5 just big picture predictions in the world of sports, all sports, that will happen in 2025. Some spicy, some not. Okay, we're going to start with just big picture sports predictions before I get into the firings. Outside looking in, says before the top 5. Sam Darnold returns and becomes the quarterback for the New York Jets next season. Formerly a second overall pick of the New York Jets. Third overall pick of the New York Jets. Sam Darnold, they let him go. He was seeing ghosts. Carolina, disaster there. Was a backup in San Francisco for 1 year. And then he's been awesome for the Vikings this year. And they're playing the Lions on Sunday night to see who will get the first round bye and who will have home field throughout the NFC postseason. Sam Darnold, you could argue, should be third in the MVP race behind Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. He's got over 35 touchdowns, over 4,000 passing yards. He's been phenomenal. I think Kevin O'Connell is a hell of a coach. Either he or Dan Campbell are going to win Coach of the Year. So he deserves a ton of credit. But you also have to give a ton of credit to Sam Darnold. Now you go, look at all that great numbers, success. Why wouldn't the Vikings keep him? Well, they took J.J. McCarthy in the first round last year, and they really liked J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, who won a national championship at Michigan. J.J. McCarthy, who tore his meniscus in training camp, should be good to go for next season. Sam Darnold was on a 1-year deal to come in, probably play a little bit, and then ultimately turn to J.J. McCarthy. But they weren't able to do that, and he's been awesome. If you draft a guy in the first round, you don't give the quarterback that was on a bridge deal $40+ million a year to stay. We just saw what happened with the Atlanta Falcons. They did it with Kirk Cousins, and now they're going to have to cut him and pay him a bunch of money to play elsewhere. I don't think the Vikings are going to do the same thing. I think they like J.J. McCarthy. I think they believe in-house that J.J. McCarthy can be as good at the position or better than Sam Darnold. So that means Sam Darnold needs to quarterback somewhere else. The Jets are not going to bring back Aaron Rodgers. That's another one of my predictions is Aaron Rodgers will retire this offseason and not play anywhere else because nobody will want him. But Darnold, I think you could look at the 49ers who have to make a decision on Brock Purdy. Do they want to pay him $50 million a year to be their quarterback? In all likelihood, $40 to $50 million. Scare the hell out of me, but again, he's been good for them. So you go, okay, Darnold, maybe the Tennessee Titans could use him. Sure. Some other teams around the league that we could go through. But the Jets, it would make sense. They have some decent weapons. They're going to hire a new coach who could be Mike Vrabel. And Mike Vrabel, I think, would like Sam Darnold. He would like his ability to overcome, play tough. He's seen his tape all year. And I just think Sam Darnold to the Jets makes a lot of sense. He might not want to go back there, but for the right check, he would. And the Jets give out big checks to players that maybe they shouldn't all the time. It could be a disastrous fit. Doesn't mean it won't happen. I have Sam Darnold reuniting with the New York Jets this offseason. Second outside looking in for 2025 predictions, I believe Brad Marchand will leave the Boston Bruins and sign elsewhere. I don't have the team yet. It's too early, but I do not think Brad Marchand, who does not have a contract going into next year, will remain captain or remain a member of the Boston Bruins. Boston's in this weird spot where they're old and yet they're still trying to be relevant and still trying to be competitive. And those two things don't mix. I respect the hell out of Brad Marchand. I still think he can play. But if I'm a team, I do not want him signed to a 3-year deal. He's gone through a lot of surgeries. He's had a lot of bumps and bruises on that body. Just because a player's played for you forever. And I've been through this. And this is what logic and fans separate. How could you let a guy go? Because it's business. Because it's business, and business does not take into feelings. Who cares? Boston needs to change. It will not happen this year if they play Toronto in the first round. They will not beat them. Mark my words. because it can't happen. They don't have the team, they don't have the depth. They have gotten away with it a long time. Boston Bruins were Jeremy Renner and Ben Affleck in the town, pulling off bank heist after bank heist. But eventually, you get caught. Eventually, you get too greedy, you get too close to the sun, and it's over for you. Marchand might want to stay. The Bruins are not going to want to keep him. Marchand leaves Boston, Massachusetts. And final, outside looking in, the New York Mets are going to miss the playoffs. The New York Mets, who signed Clay Holmes from the Yankees, signed Juan Soto to the largest contract in Major League Baseball history, largest contract in sports history outside of soccer with Ronaldo. They made the NLCS last year. But you sign a guy to a big deal in baseball doesn't mean you're going to have all that kind of success. Yankees missed the playoffs a couple years ago after signing guys to big deals. Doesn't mean automatic success. The Braves are pretty good in their own division. Braves could, with health, Braves could win that division. Then you're hoping for a wild card spot. And I look around and I go, Diamondbacks are pretty good. They just signed Corbin Burns. Dodgers, going to be there. Padres, I believe, will be a playoff team again. So you're running out of spots. NL Central, okay, you might go, it's a pretty weak division. Agreed, but one team's winning that division. And maybe you beat up on a bunch of bad teams and you become a wild card team because you play a bunch of crap, which could happen. I think the Mets missed the playoffs their first year with Juan Soto. Okay. 5 big predictions. Number 5, the Kansas City Chiefs, for the first time in NFL history, three-peat. Win 3 Super Bowls in a row, and Patrick Mahomes does something Tom Brady never did, and that's win 3 straight Super Bowls. Cement themselves as the greatest legacy in NFL history, and a 4th ring for Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and co. Not going to be easy. Ravens are tough. Bills are tough. Bills beat the Chiefs earlier in the season. But I look around and go, the Lions are a wounded animal. They're not the threat. That's who I thought would beat them in the Super Bowl. They're not as tough as they were. Packers, I don't believe that they can beat Kansas City. I don't know if the Packers can get that far because they just have a lot of question marks on their roster. They haven't beat a good team all year. Minnesota, great story. I like their team. But am I banking on them to beat a Kansas City in a Super Bowl? I'm not. Philadelphia, most talented team in the league. Philadelphia, healthy, could absolutely give Kansas City a run for their money. But I think Kansas City has all the ingredients to do it again. They're playing their best football late in the season. They know how to turn it on when they absolutely have to. I like Kansas City to three-peat come February 8th. Number 4, Aaron Rodgers retires, but not on his doing. Aaron Rodgers retires because no team will sign him. He'll make it seem like it's my decision, but it's because his agent will look around the league and no team wants him. His last month or so has been really ugly to watch. His play has dipped. He can't run anymore. He's in his 40s. It's time for him to retire. It's time to go do ayahuasca or whatever he wants to do post-NFL career. One day he will be in the Hall of Fame, a first ballot. But I believe Aaron Rodgers is done as an NFL quarterback. Number 3, Mikko Rantanen leaves the Colorado Avalanche. Mikko Rantanen is a pending unrestricted free agent, and he does not have a new contract. That's funny to me that a player that good has entered 2025 without a new deal. Reportedly, Colorado has an internal cap, and they will not go past the MacKinnon contract. Totally understand that. I can totally understand Mikko Rantanen, who took less the last time he got a deal, wants more money. So I see it from both sides and where they want to go with this. Mikko Rantanen is one of the best wingers in the league, bar none. I think he's better than a guy that I will have on this list shortly. But I think he leaves because he wants more money. He wants a big contract. They've had success in Colorado. They won a Stanley Cup. But he will have so much interest on the open market to at least go out there and test the waters to see what's available to him. The Rangers are going to have a lot of money to spend. They're going to have a lot of cap room to be aggressive and go after a guy like Mikko Rantanen. That's just one team that comes to mind. That would make sense. The Boston Bruins. You want to rebuild? You want to let your captain go? Mikko Rantanen. Fun. Carolina Hurricanes. Spend some money. Go see what he's got down there. Washington Capitals. Really good season. Still have Ovechkin. Maybe we can win a cup. We have guys in LTIR. Maybe we could win a cup this year with you coming into the mix. All different possibilities. I think Rantanen is going to stick to his guns, test the market, and I don't think Joe Sakic is going to budge on that idea of we're not going over this number. Mikko Rantanen leaves Colorado for another opportunity and gets a big contract, probably more money than MacKinnon. Number 2, Mitch Marner re-signs in Toronto. This is a polarizing topic, polarizing player. He's loved by some, hated by a lot of others. Just had a hat trick the other day, a natural hat trick the other day. He's one of the best players in the world. I do think Mikko Rantanen's a better winger than Mitch Marner. That's up for debate. Well, maybe for some, not in my personal record book, which is the only one I really care about. But Mitch Marner is a hell of a player. He is great when Auston Matthews is not around. And here's another thing. If Auston Matthews is going to be a brittle bird the rest of his career, it'd be nice to have another guy that could make things happen. Like, I don't know, Mitch Marner. So he can be your penalty killer. He can put up 100 points a season, which I think he'll do this year for the first time in his career. Does everything, team guy, plays in the playoffs, might not play well, but he plays. Unlike Matthews and Nylander, who you can't say that for all the time. He doesn't miss games, Mitch Marner, often. Loves Toronto, grew up there. I think represents the team well, all in all. Might not like his old man, but that's a whole other story for another day. I think the Maple Leafs, I don't think there's a world where they lose in the first round this year, and that might sound polarizing to some fans. I get it. I don't think they're going to lose in the first round. Because if they do play Boston, they're not going to lose to Boston. If they win the Atlantic, which I think they will, and they should, they're currently tied with Florida, but they have more regulation wins. So they own the tiebreaker after 38 games. If they play Tampa, we've been over this, they beat Tampa all the time. They beat them in the playoffs. They beat them in the regular season. If they play Ottawa, they will beat Ottawa. So I think Toronto can go on a deep run. If Florida loads up, can they beat Florida? Remains to be seen. But with any kind of success, I think Mitch Marner will return. Mitch Marner stays in Toronto. Number 1. This is the spiciest. This is the fun one. Number 1. This time next year, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a New York Yankee. couple of years ago, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. told the media that he will never be a Yankee, which I thought was stupid to say, but nevertheless, he said it. Reportedly, the Blue Jays and Vladdy are far apart in contract negotiations. So he just saw what Soto got. He's seeing what Judge got, what Ohtani got. He's a hell of a player. The Blue Jays have been second or third on getting all these big name players. And, I think Vladdy likes Toronto, but like his old man, he can bounce around and play for different teams over the course of your career. The Yankees brought in Christian Walker. Good first baseman, sure. But there's different possibilities. That doesn't mean that if they go through this season and they don't have the year that they thought they were going to, so the Yankees, I forgot who the Yankees brought in to play first base, but it wasn't Christian Walker. Sorry for that. He went to the Astros. But I was thinking of Paul Goldschmidt. There we go, Paul Goldschmidt. Brought in Paul Goldschmidt to be their first baseman, which for a 1-year deal, by the way. So 1 year for the veteran. Bring him in, see what he can do. Yankees spent a bunch of money this offseason trying to win, but let's say they don't have the year that they think they're going to have. And they go, well, Goldschmidt's off the books. Aaron Boone's got 1 year left, so we need a new manager. Cody Bellinger we have here, but we might want to play him in the outfield with Stanton getting older and Judge getting older. So what do we do? Well, let's sign Vlad. He's the best first baseman available. He'll be a DH eventually, but he can still play first base for us. And let's take him away from the Blue Jays. We'll hurt our competition in the process. Vladdy to the Yankees, in part because they will spend the money for these big players. There's only few teams around the league that will. The Yankees will. If they go through another year where they don't get back to the World Series, they don't win a World Series, which they probably won't, they are going to be dangerous and they're going to be spending again. Recklessly spending. That could be on Vladdy. My big one, Vladdy to the Yankees. Okay. Second list. 2025 predictions. 5 people who will be fired in the coming year. Number 5, Kevin Adams, general manager of the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres are a joke. They're going to miss the playoffs for the 14th straight year. Kevin Adams has said we're not a destination right now. There's nothing that appealing about Buffalo. There's no trees. There's no good weather. There's nothing. He's searching for answers, and he's not finding any. Lindy Ruff, second time around, has not worked. And this team could play however they play in 2025. They are going to miss the playoffs again, which will spark failure. And if teams like Ottawa, teams like Detroit, teams like Montreal finish above you in the standings, that means you are getting worse while your competition is getting better. I don't see it. Kevin Adams, first-time GM. I think Buffalo needs to hire a president of hockey operations with experience to come in and run this thing. Not be a clown show, build a team. President, you can hire a GM underneath, but you need that hierarchical just stability, which they don't have. The Pagulas clearly care about the football team. They've never shown a level of care in the hockey team. Until that changes, their team will continue to suck. but they love firing people. They'll fire Kevin Adams before the start of the 25-26 season. Number 4, Ross Atkins, GM of the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays won 70 games, a little over 70 games last year. And we're into January, and they haven't really done anything. They got Jimenez from the Guardians to come play second base, a defensive, good second baseman who can't hit. Great. Love that. Vladdy, expiring contract. Bo Bichette, expiring contract. Are there either of them going to stay? Pitching is good, not great, but you haven't really added much to the pitching rotation. Bullpen, you lost Jordan Romano to the Phillies. There's still guys available. Alex Bregman is available. The Polar Bear, Pete Alonso, who they won't sign, is still available. But I think the Blue Jays are going to miss the playoffs again. And there's only so many years that Ross Atkins will be able to give nothing answers and keep a job. Eventually, the higher-ups are going to go, okay, what are we doing here? We're spending a lot of money. We spend a lot of money on renovations, and our crowds are starting to dip because our team just isn't that good anymore. I have Ross Atkins being fired this upcoming season, or at least by the end of this upcoming season. Okay. Number 3, I'm going to be completely honest. I initially had Marty St. Louis. And I don't think that's gonna happen anymore. So I made this list before Christmas. And I partly did that because I think Marty St. Louis got a job that he didn't really deserve, to be completely honest. But he got the job, and credit to him. But Montreal's starting to turn it around a little bit. They're starting to play better. So I scratched off Marty St. Louis, and instead, number 3, I put Nick Nurse, head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, former head coach of the Toronto Raptors. The 76ers might rally and make the playoffs like they should with their roster. Currently, they are 11th in the East at 13-17. In an Eastern Conference that's quite frankly pathetic. Hornets 7-25, Raptors 7-26, Wizards 5-25. They're only above the Nets at 12-20. Pacers, Bulls, Pistons, all in playoff positions, all under 500. That tells you the weakness of the East. But the Sixers, sure, they could make the playoffs, find a way in. But after that, are they going to beat anybody? Do I think they can beat the Cavs in a 7-game series? Probably not. Do I think they can beat the Celtics? Hell no. The Knicks? No. No, they didn't last year. If the Magic are healthy, they're not beating the Orlando Magic. The Atlanta Hawks are showing promise. The Sixers are going to lose in the first or second round like they always do. They gave Paul George a bunch of money. Embiid never plays because he's a baby bird. And it's just an ugly situation there. Ugly, ugly situation. Nick Nurse, somebody's going to have to take the bullet. It's not going to be the GM. It's going to be Nick Nurse. Yes, he is popular. Yes, he's won a championship. He can get another job somewhere else. He's not going to keep the job in Philly, at least in my opinion. Number 2, President of Hockey Operations for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brendan Shanahan. Brendan Shanahan is on the last year of his deal, and he doesn't have an extension. Even if the Maple Leafs go on a run to the conference final, which they could, by the way, I don't know why you'd keep him. He's been at the job a decade and they've won one playoff round. So in the last year, he finds some success and you go, let's keep him. Doesn't make sense to me. I don't think the Maple Leafs will offer him a contract extension. If you're going to keep Marner, which I think they will, you kept Nylander, you kept Matthews, you need some sort of change. I don't know what he brings to the table. There's a new ownership group that didn't give him the contract initially. I don't see the love affair with him. So all that being said, I think Brandon Shanahan will be told, yeah, we're not giving you another contract. We're going to let you go elsewhere. So I have Brandon Shanahan becoming a free agent, leaving the Toronto organization after a decade. Number one. Number one's easy to me. I'd be stunned if this doesn't happen. Number one is Steve Yzerman, the GM of the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings are a mess. At one point, the Detroit Red Wings made the playoffs 22 straight years. They have now missed 8 years in a row. Steve Yzerman has built a team with no identity, no culture, no characteristics that you like. And I like some of their prospects. Simon Edvinsson looks promising. Sandin Pellikka could be a good player. But I look around and go, when's it coming? How long does it take for these guys to figure out how to play in the NHL? Their players now, Dylan Larkin, okay player. Seider, I think, is pretty good. But you look at the rest of them, Lucas Raymond, he's not a star. He's a good NHL player. He's not a star. They don't have stars on their team. They have some good players with a lot of Tarasenko's. Why'd you sign him? Bring Patrick Kane back. Don't get it. You have 4 goalies that aren't any good, that you're playing all of them. Sandin Pellikka, 19. Okay, going to take some time. Carter Mazur, 22. Sebastian Cossa, who's still playing in the American leagues. You have all those fucking goalies. Marco Kasper, 20-year-old Austria. Nate Danielson, who played for Team Canada the last couple years of the World Juniors. Trey Augustine, who's playing for the Americans, a 19-year-old goaltender. That's 2-3 years away. So Brandig Nygaard, who's a Norwegian who they took in the first round. So they have a bunch of guys, but how long is it going to take? It's not happening in a day that these guys are going to turn into really good prospects. Their team, just their strategy is weird. They just fired a coach. I think it's going to be big change in Detroit. That the Yzer plan has not worked. It's been a flat-out failure. Since Ken Holland left, that team's been a joke. Ken Holland got the Oilers to a Stanley Cup final. Steve Yzerman has not got the Detroit Red Wings to the playoffs. They're still doing good things down in Tampa. Their GM's still making moves to keep them competitive, to keep them in playoff contention above teams like the Detroit Red Wings. So those are my 2025 predictions. Other news before we wrap the show, Saquon Barkley will not play Sunday despite the fact that he needs 100 rushing yards to break the NFL record, breaking Eric Dickerson's single season rushing record. Eagles will hold him out for precautionary reasons, which likely means that Jalen Hurts, who missed last week, will not play as well. Wouldn't be shocked if we see Tanner McGee play on Sunday against the Giants. But as I said earlier in the program, on Friday, we're going to recap the World Junior Games. We're going to talk about the NFL weekend. We'll get into some of the lines and players sitting out, who will be available, who won't be available. And we got NFL playoffs next weekend, which is crazy. And we'll also talk about college football. Penn State winning last night, covering the 11.5. So that's 1-0 so far in our college football picks. Today, I like Texas minus 13 against Arizona State. I like Oregon plus 2.5 against Ohio State. And I like Notre Dame plus 1 against Georgia. So again, those are the picks for college football later today. Enjoy the rest of your holiday. Thank you for tuning in. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, leave us a review. Always appreciate that. We'll talk to you Friday. Enjoy your day off. This is Live and Learn, and I'm your host,